And we should be running live. Good evening, everyone. Yeah, we should be. You should have sound whizzing its way to you, landing into your ears. Yeah, we're 2 minutes late. I'm sorry about that. I got a little bit carried away with some bits and pieces. Hopefully, it'll be worth it. Hello, everyone. Hello. This is good, right? Okay, it's a first proper episode of the year. Is that right? Is it? No, it's not. We've done many episodes. This is the first proper episode into our third century of episodes, which is quite baffling. Conscious of a few things when I put out this episode thumbnail that actually of a couple of things. One of them which I'm going to now fix because I forgot about it. I'm going to now fix that right now because I have the power to do these things. There we go, fixed it. There, done. Good. You can't have to have your gags have to be ready. Right, lined up. So, further I put this thumbnail together, and I was conscious that RailNatter is branded orange, and we have a decidedly non-orange stance in relation to Ireland. So, perhaps we should have made it green. And then I thought, the thing is, as someone rightly pointed out on Twitter, Irish Rail have, for a very long time, had orange branding. And indeed, one of the Irish colours is indeed orange. So when you're south of the south of the north, which makes sense if you live on the island of Ireland, then actually you're not so fussed about worrying about orange. But this is an all-Ireland episode. In any case, maybe this works best. This one for the non-audio only people. In any case, episode 201 is what we're doing. We're getting into talking about the whole of the island of Ireland and its rail network. And what we're doing tonight's episode is a warm-up. In fact, it's a warm-up for when we look at the final publication of the All Ireland Rail Review, the All Ireland Strategic Rail Review, rather, which will be published in summer, possibly a little bit later. Actually, this might be in spring, but in any case, it's that'll be coming out, and I want to dig into it. But I wanted to do an episode where we kind of warm ourselves up in advance of that, so that we can have some of the context without having to then run through all that context again when the full thing comes out. So we can have a look. And as people are already pointing out, 2024 is the year of a united Ireland. In any case, maybe a little bit more on that momentarily. YouTube is very buggy at the moment. It was running incredibly slowly when I was doing some stuff on it yesterday. I was just I was doing some stuff in prep for this, in fact, and had There's a Problem podcast on. I was listening to the Everest episode because I'd missed that one. And it was just, YouTube was being rubbish. We are going to talk about gauge, but probably in another episode, there is something we should talk about in terms of track gauge. We'll get everyone we'll get there. Don't worry. We will get there. So, firstly, everyone, welcome to episode 201, getting ready for the all-around rail review. It's RailNatter. And as the Intercity 225 fades away, we go straight into it. There's no news tonight. We are asking the question: what is, first of all, to start, we're just getting straight into the nuts and bolts of this. What is Ireland, and why do we need to specify when we're talking about all of it? Well, this is, funnily enough, a subject that probably isn't going to be covered particularly usefully by an episode of RailNatter. What I can recommend you do is go and yes, because of course this is the year. It's worth saying this is the year of Irish unification, as predicted by. Well, not predicted by data, as simply relayed from the computer by data to Captain Picard in a few hundred years. No, if you want to understand why we have to why there's an island that clearly makes sense to be a single Ireland next to Britain that that's a chunk of it there's a border in it, then I can strongly recommend that you go and listen to the Lions Led by Donkeys series, with where Joe is in fact listening, because Tom is in the hot seat and guides us through not just the history of the Troubles, but the history of what led to Ireland splitting up in the 20s in the first place. Spoiler alert: it's British people's fault. It is an island nation, a bit of which is occupied by colonial power. Yeah, and I'm sure that there are plenty of people who live in Northern Ireland who would take a different view to that. But yeah, I think a lot of people don't agree. And the I don't know. There's an obsessive in me who sees that as an island and feels like as an island it should be one thing. But anyway, I don't know. What I can say is this, from a transport perspective, it doesn't make any sense to think of Northern Ireland and Ireland separately. They are one thing. Oh, I should say, what actually is it? Let's briefly hear it. Look, we're in Bentley Microstation. Hello, Bentley. Thanks for giving me the license to go on Rail Natters. You'll notice that there's some whales in here because I forgot to switch these levels off. But basically, let's click this button, because there are 4 large cities on the island of Ireland. I'm going to call it Ireland from now on. Is that all right? Sorry, Northern Irish people, but only a small number of you will actually be irritated by this. So yeah, here's Ireland. There are 4 major cities. Dublin and Belfast being the 2 capital cities, Dublin's the capital city and Belfast is the Northern Irish provincial city, and then you have Cork and you have Limerick. Those are the 4 cities. Actually, the thing I'm going to do is very quickly get a thing up, because there's going to be smaller places that I'm going to be diving into to name, which I will have to then remember the names of. So let me just quickly do that. So here there's this island here, and you can see this. By the way, worth just saying, this is not the British Isles. No, incorrect. This is the North Atlantic archipelago. Here is the large island, which is known as Great Britain. It has Wales, England, and Scotland on it, 3 countries, unified under the single crown for stupid reasons in Scotland's case, because it made itself bankrupt by trying to do its own colonialism, sort of serve Scotland right. In Wales's reason, because look at it, it just got gobbled up by England. You know what's going to happen. Anyway, Ireland has a nice sea in the way, so kind of escaped this chaos for a while until we invented the boat, and then attacked and then starved them for a while and did a series of bad things. In any case, now here's lovely Ireland, and it's a marvelous, green and beautiful island. Beautiful country with some interesting railway history, not least, as people have alluded to, the better track gauge. So yeah, the track gauge, rather than being 4 foot 8.5 inches, is 5 foot 3 inches, or 1600 millimeters. Wonderful 1600 millimeter gauge. And various sort of slightly tongue-in-cheek assessments have worked out that probably 1600 mil gauge is a better gauge than 1435 in terms of slight improvement in stability, for only a marginal increase in sort of infrastructure width, in terms of, obviously it doesn't make any difference to the potential loading gauge, but it just adds a little bit of additional stability. Who knows? I'm inclined not to be too fussed. I don't think there's much difference, but I do like 1600 millimeters as maybe 1500 would have been perfect, but 1600 is a very neat sounding gauge. So everything looks, all the pictures of railways on Ireland look slightly weird to me, because my eye is sort of set on 1435. So everything looks the trains look a bit strange, and everything looks a bit strange because of that slightly wider gauge. Anyway, so there we are. There's Ireland. Look at it, and it's all very kind of Atlantic coast, battered fjord style over here, and it's much flatter and more verdant on the and sort of as you can see, lots of fields. Look at these speckly fields everywhere. Lots of fields. What's quite fun is that on this satellite view is all this muddiness here that you can see, with all these bits of large field having been stripped. Look, it's beautiful from space. Anyway, lots of lochs as well, lakes. I don't know why I said lochs, because I'm Scottish. Lots of lakes. Actually, I don't know what the Irish Gaelic is for loch. Probably not dissimilar. And yeah, there you go. That's the geography is pretty straightforward. What's the population? Well, firstly, it's a big island. It's much. We were looking at Wales when we last did a proper network assessment. We were looking at Wales. Wales is pretty much smaller. Ireland's big. It's a big old place. The population of the whole island is about 7 million, which is substantially bigger than Scotland. It's way bigger than Wales is a population of about 3 million. Scotland's a population of about 5 million. It might have dropped a bit actually. Loch in Gaelic. Oh, nice. There we are. Thanks, Tony. Very nice. Yeah. Thanks, Gareth, as well. Possibly peat bogs. Yeah, peat extraction. That's the vibe I was getting. But the thing is, is that what I suppose that could be what it is. Anyway, it's really strange. I would have expected peat bogs to be further west, but anyway, I shows what I know. Population of about 7 million, so bigger than Norway, bigger than quite a lot of countries actually. It's a large. It's not a small country, is what I want to say. Or rather, should I say, it's not a small island population wise. 5 million for Ireland puts it as a kind of a middling sized small country. But it's the whole island relatively has a pretty sizable population, and certainly justifies a well developed railway system, a rail transport system. So let us. There's more context to come, by the way. As indeed we'll kind of some of the stuff we'll go through momentarily. So here it is, and you can see rail network wise, the north has basically it's not quite a single railway line. It's got a single kind of regional railway line, and then there's some additional rail capacity kind of stuff that runs around Belfast. Dublin's got a pretty well developed urban rail network. It's still, it's still under development. More of that happening, and then it's got. Yeah, I wouldn't say an exhaustive rail network, but it's got a reasonably. The rail network exists. There is certainly a rail network. There is a reasonably well developed intercity connection between Dublin and Cork, and the kind of there's a little bit of suburban rail down in Cork. Cork, pretty sizable city in terms of the actual scale of the settlements. Dublin has a kind of the wider Dublin area. Has a population of about over 2 million, so it's a sizable population. For comparison, Belfast's kind of urban area is like about 600,000 ish. So Dublin is a pretty big city. 2 million people in the Greater Dublin area. That's a sizable chunk. The actual population of the city core is about 600,000, which compares, as I said, to Belfast, only about half that size. Cork is about 200,000, so that's still pretty sizable. On our my categorization of sizable cities that justify a decent rail link, then I say anything over 100,000 merits a decent connection. The rail. Frustratingly, and we'll come to this momentarily. In fact, we'll save this until after my conversation's about. What I'm going to do. I'm going to put my miniaturized face in the top corner. Hello, everyone. I'm back. Hi. So, the railways are run by two organisations, both state organisations. Translink, Northern Ireland, is a state rail operator, and Irish Rail, state rail operator south of the north. Irish Rail and Translink are the two operators. And I think Irish Rail's got quite a good. I quite like everything that Irish Rail does. They've got. I'm absolutely certain they're not perfect. At some point, we have to we'll get Tom on to do a what's wrong with Irish Railways episode, railways in Ireland. From my understanding is that they've got a pretty smart fleet. It's fairly well modernised. They've got an interesting mix of some push-pull stock and multiple units. There's bits of electrification. There's all of which I'm sure we're about to see in the consultation documentation we're going to go through. But we talk about population density because I think it's relevant. And let me just click Control P and get me wiggly stick in. So the island is, Ireland is populated. It has obviously the kind of the dense population bits. Dublin, Belfast, Cork, to Limerick. But actually, on average, it's got a kind of medium population density. It's not super dense like the Low Countries, but it's also not northern Scotland. There's people sometimes have a view of Ireland as being this kind of empty landscape with no one living there. Although the reality is that's not the case. Actually, the population is quite substantially higher than the Scottish Highlands, for example, which are much lower, and it's actually higher than quite a bit of Wales as well. Wales is kind of substantially more depopulated in kind of the mid Wales region. Away from the north and the south in Wales is much less populated than most of Ireland is. Ireland generally has a pretty a relatively much higher population density. Feel free to chuck questions on, by the way. Hello, everyone in the chat. Brown spots are bogs which have been stripped of peat. I was thinking that would be what it is. There are really cool old Irish rail logos. Look them up, everyone. Is that old Irish rail logos? Are we going to be seeing some based Irish? Oh, hello. Oh God. Oh yes, I did know this one. Oh, okay. You know what? Let's get the old Google up. Look at this. Okay, so this one I did remember this one, which is I like that very much for track reasons. That's very nice. It's very nice indeed. This one is less interesting in honesty. It's very graphic and stylized. Return with a V to this. That's very very nice. And then some of this sort of stuff is also it's pretty snazzy. It's not bad. I definitely prefer the old one. You can see that there is the kind of transition. Oh, that's such a 2000s era logo, the irishrail.ie one, having the internet in it. Oh, my goodness. Anyway, is that a solid piece of 20mm original Irish rail? That's interesting. Anyway, I think that's my favorite. That's very very nice. Anyway. Yeah, thanks for the tip. That was fun. I enjoyed that. Anoniano. Yes, the Irish word for railway is essentially iron road. Yes, I think that. If we flick back, iron road, iron. Yeah. Thanks, Martha. Anyway. So there are two documents that I should talk about. The All Ireland Rail, the Strategic Rail Review. We're going to talk about that. We're going to look at two documents. We're going to look at this document both to start with and afterwards, because it's going to introduce us to what the All Ireland Strategic Rail Review is. We're going to then dip into one of the documents that have come out of that process. That's kind of some of the kind of the context and policy, and then we're going to dive back into this document to look at some of the kind of the geographical context. So that is that's the general. The current one is the logo of a small town web design firm. Yes, I would agree with that, Martha. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to have a look through. It's kind of a page turn, except that we've got some mapping stuff. I hinted at the fact that there are going to be some maps. So we're going to repeat the Wales process-ish, not quite as neatly, but we're going to repeat the rail process to the kind of the rail network process that we did in Wales to develop a Welsh railway map. We're going to repeat that for Ireland and see kind of what it spits out and what we think as RailNatter in terms of the broad view, that without the detail. You could obviously go into great detail of the specifics of metro systems for Dublin and Belfast, or certainly a greater percentage of suburban system for Dublin, certainly Belfast, certainly Cork, yes, and indeed Limerick, to a lesser extent, but certainly Limerick would justify having a tram system of some kind. Dublin is a big enough, dense enough city to have. Well, Dart. It has Dart. The expansion of Dart is good. I'm a big fan of Dart. So let's do that. Do chuck your questions. I'm going to. I do need to get map men. There needs to be a crossover, doesn't there? You're right, Alex. There absolutely does. Let me first of all just right click and go properties and click my mouse on to remember that that's a thing I need to do. Let's go so we're going to start with the All Ireland Strategic Rail Review consultation paper. Now this was released a way back in November 21. So this is from a while back, but there's a lot of useful context in here. So here's the ministerial forward. Normally I skip these things. In fact, and yes, I'm going to read a paragraph of it. The aim of this review and the evidence base that will underpin it is to show the trade-offs in outcomes against objectives for alternative network options, outlining a potential investment framework for the coming decades. This review will show the difference in network option outcomes that have clear blue water between them, ensuring stakeholders understand the impact of competing objectives to aid our decision making. it's kind of looking at this review is kind of expanding on the commitments under the New Decade New Approach Agreement to examine the feasibility of a high/higher speed rail link between Belfast, Dublin, and Cork, and we'll look at ways to improve our current rail infrastructure, including the feasibility of high/higher speeds and electrification, better networks to the northwest, and the role of rail in the efficient movement of goods. So it's a broad look at regional transport, I'd say. So this isn't looking at the suburban and urban transport. This is looking at the regional interconnectivity and what the network should look like as a result. So yeah, that's some interesting. So that's the context. But let's first of all look briefly at the context and policy pack to see if there's anything interesting we can pull out here, because there's a lot of information here. Introduction, yada yada. We're not going to. There's lots of paper, lots of bits here. So the strategic policy context. So there's a deal. The New Decade New Approach deal was about attempting to restore the devolved government in Northern Ireland, focusing on better public services. That's still Northern Ireland is an absolute basket case at this point from a governmental point of view. Screw you DUP, etc, etc, etc. Brexit's messed everything up, and basically the UK doesn't care. The core UK doesn't care. Westminster does not care about Northern Ireland. They'd probably rather Northern Ireland wasn't around. It's just it's an inconvenience to them. So there's already some good discussions going on in the chat. By the way, everyone, actually, you know what? I'm going to do a quick poll. Start a poll. Are you Irish? Question mark. And I'm going to say, I think it did. Are you Irish? Yes, no. Start poll. There we go. Let's see. So people who are watching this who are Irish, I'm curious to see what number of people. Can I full screen the screen? I could full screen the screen. Yeah, couldn't I? There we are. Is that? Oh no, that's not worked. Let me just zoom to page level there. That'll work. Yeah. Okay. So there we go. Thanks, Gareth. Good point. I can do that. So this is there's some policy context. There's this useful document for some of this context, and there's lots of stuff, kind of regional stuff going on, and kind of various action plans. Some of them going way back. So clearly, there's a lot of context. National investment frameworks for transport. There's all this context. There's a policy framework here showing Project Ireland 2040, which is a good principle, and then with a load of strategies feeding into it, and then the Northern Irish policy framework, which is less because they're the UK and the UK is a dump. Should have made 3 options: Northern Ireland, and no. Oh, maybe I can still do that. You know what? I will do that because it'll just be interesting to know. I'm going to do another one. Add option. Are you from Ireland? Northern Ireland. Not Ireland. None of the above. There we are. Let's do that. That's better. Good point. We have the technology to have a 3-poll thing, so let's do just that. Lovely. Thanks, Knucker. You're right. That's a better way to do things. So, right, okay. So this policy framework, fine. We can talk about some discussion of decarbonisation and commitments there, network connectivity, accessibility, sustainable, all the standard stuff you'd expect to see. And then, of course, the value for money investment. Sorry, Ireland, we've given you treasury brain. So conclusions, strategic policy context. Both jurisdictions are working to reduce the carbon emissions associated with travel, manage travel demands, and grow the mode share of sustainable transport options like public transport, walking and cycling. The important role that public transport plays in delivering on the identified societal outcomes for both jurisdictions is recognised. Okay, very gentle discussion there. Weaknesses, challenges in justifying investment and identifying funding sources. Yeah. This is one of the problems of being in the euro, is that you no longer have a sovereign currency and you can't borrow nearly as easily to invest in capital infrastructure. Good reason not to be in the euro. Not a showstopper, but a good reason. Goals and objectives. Okay, fine. So let's continue whizzing through. So there's this consultation outcome. There's been a consultation that we're going to look at the warm-up report for. So that public consultation has happened. Lots of people kind of coming through, varying levels of engagement with the consultation. Fine. They've got about 7,000 responses through the website. Fine. So there we are. So there's, interestingly, a lot of responses from a lot of responses from up in Donegal, Tyrone, and Fermanagh. The kind of that top corner. It's just strange. Not as much from the cities. Really bizarre concentration. Lots in Cork as well. It's really strange. Clearly not a very good advertising of that consultation. Damn. Anyway, yeah. Right, so there's as I say, there's loads of pages in here. We're not going to talk about the consultation engagement because we're actually going to mostly use the consultation engagement. Derry Londonderry is here's Derry engaging substantially with the discussions of people from Derry clearly want better rail connections, but also Cork, Donegal. Yeah, interesting. Limerick, not so much, which is really strange. West, generally mentioned a lot. Yeah, I don't know. Consultations have mixed. It's important that they should happen, but also, it's very strange. They have no trains, is basically why they're engaging with it. They're saying, yeah, give us train. We want train. Give us train. Yeah, that's quite reasonable. Fine. Weaknesses. Oh, fine. Lack of reliability due to short notice delays, lack of network coverage and connectivity clearly felt by the public and stakeholder respondents. 85% indicate the need for greater network provision and regional inequity was cited, as well as strong mention of the Northwest. Well, there you go. As you're saying in the chat, everyone. The Northwest vigorously mentioning that they don't have anything. West and North, they don't have anything. Okay, fine. So that's a key context. I wonder how that'll play with the way that I've developed the network map. I wonder. Because the way that we develop that network map isn't the be-all and end-all. Of course, just looking at population centres isn't the only way to develop a map. But also, from a carbon perspective, we don't necessarily want, I do want to expand existing population centres because that's the most carbon efficient way for us to continue our society. So right, there's lots of discussion of the rail passenger, and this is standard human engagement stuff, like all the different people who might travel and how they deal with things and blah blah blah. Okay, fine. The difference between from 1960 to 2020 of the urban versus the rural populations. We have an urbanizing population, standard for this kind of country. This map we'll bring again. This is the population density map, so you can see not much in the fringes, but clumps in Derry. Obviously, Belfast, Dublin, Galway is a decent sized place. That's my first trip to Ireland. I'm just going to Galway. Cork. Actually, was it or was it Sligo? God damn, I can't remember which one was first. Anyway, it's all very lovely. Strongly recommend going to Ireland. It's just a very, very beautiful place. Cork, a decent. Limerick and Cork also decent kind of clumps of population density, and you can see the rail network and the way the rail network kind of maps onto that, and to be honest, it maps onto it weirdly. It doesn't really make a huge amount of sense. It's classic, doesn't make any sense railway network in that why is it going, what's the connection to Limerick, for example, is rubbish. Like that to me looks like an afterthought type rail network. Okay, lots of stuff so that's like land cover and the kind of what we described. So the Northwest, there's the Northeast, there's the East, there's the Irish Midlands, the Southeast, the Southwest, the Midwest, and the West. That's our Ireland has a Midwest. Happens the best of us. The North Midlands there. Everyone's got to have a Midlands in some capacity. So you can see the big focus of the urban areas. Suddenly, this is a really nice map for showing kind of, and I think this map appears later as well. You can see that the Derry does really appear quite vividly, but so does Coleraine. Belfast, obviously, Dublin in a big way, and quite a long urban corridor along that kind of the Cork corridor down towards Cork. There's a decent population along that route as well. Limerick, and then a bit, Waterford also sizable chunk there. So lots of key characteristics. Fine, major cities. So you got like the total population. So Dublin city and suburbs. Interestingly, they've got showing slightly different numbers because, as ever with stats, it just depends where you draw your dotted line. Yeah, so do keep chucking your feedback, by the way. Particularly Ananiano, do send in your thoughts. Hannah Goodliff, hello. Yeah, I'd be give us all train if I were in their position. We're talking about there's some Somerset discussions going on. There's a reason for Donegal Airport, says Philip Branco. Well, indeed. So these cities. So worth maybe just having a think about the cities. So Dublin predicted population in 2040 about 1.4 million. Belfast is saying 346,000. Yeah, okay. The broader area is larger than that, but fine. Cork City and suburbs 300,000 in 2040. Limerick 140,000. Derry 150,000. Galway 120,000. Waterford about 81,000. So yeah, interesting. So a couple of these cities will jump above our 100,000 threshold in theory by 2040. So, chuck Galway into the mix and see what that does. But at the moment, I've modelled the existing populations. And there's a big wall of text. Who put this? Was it Arup? Was it you put Arup? Arup. What page? That's 48. Cover your eyes. I'm about to flick through some pages if you're photosensitive. It's an Arup. Arup put this. Arup. What's the state of this report? It's really messy. Do a better job, guys. Come on. Put together on the cheap. Oh, it doesn't take much to just go through and bloody both sides justify your text and generally make it more readable. Don't leave a wall of text as well. What is this? Messy. You could do little graphics showing where the city, what the city shape is or something. There's so much nicer things you could do. Come on, Arup. You're supposed to be the snazzy Apple versus everyone else consultants. Do better. Arup. Slap wrists. Anyway, right, so here we go. There's some supply of rail services at settlements. So there's some, I presume these are the kind of the stations. And then there's no stations. So this is kind of a bit of the, the postcode distance to railway map, but smaller per settlement rather than per postcode area. This is quite interesting. Lots of blue for everything's miles away. Right, so I don't want to dwell on this report too long. I'll go through, flick through. What else is there? We've seen this before. That's fine. Oh, yeah, the airports. So, yeah, you've got airports. You can see the airports at the fringes, obviously, but all, up in like Donegal, but then the major airports as well. Waterford has a port. Actually, that's a port, not an airport. The airport's north of Killarney, isn't it? Anyway, lots of discussion of all sorts of stuff here. Strengths. It's a really weird way to structure. I have to say, sorry, Art, this is a bad report. It's not nicely structured. It doesn't make a huge amount of sense. So here's some nice stats. So the island of Ireland currently has 2,300 kilometres of public rail lines, of which about 2,000 are operated by Irish Rail and the rest by Northern Ireland Railways, of which they are branded Translink, or vice versa. Actually, Translink runs Northern Ireland Railways. Forgive me. There are approximately 20 rail corridors. Okay, so kind of 20 rail lines, corridors, sort of thing. 3 existing rail freight services across the network. Oh dear, 3. Oof. It's not very much, is it? That more of that needs to happen, methinks. This is quite interesting as he struggles to express a massive view on. That's the sort of thing that you can send to win your competition entry, to win things that I'm going to tell you about at the end of the episode. So right, let's keep cranking through this. So rail infrastructure. So there is some 10T infrastructure here, and it runs from ironically the border with the UK down to, or the border with Northern Ireland rather, down to Dublin through Limerick Junction down to Cork, and then up through Limerick to Foynes and the port there. So that's the 10T kind of network. So the kind of the EU, the Trans-European Transport Network lines there, and connecting up to Belfast as originally it was. And you can see some of the electrification on the network. There's not much that is electrified. Bits of the suburban core essentially, and that's it. We're gonna keep running through. So here's the map with all the disused stuff as well, and the removed stuff. You can see there's a much more dense rail network in the north, that has just essentially totally disappeared. Hence, perhaps why you get some, therefore, quite visible ex-railway lines that give people lots of visions of grandeur about what they might be able to get out of the rail network. And then kind of less down in the Republic, down in Ireland, but it's kind of a useful map to show you kind of what's going on where. The disused stuff is interesting, particularly the stuff going on the West Coast. I've been involved in. Wait, is that document somewhere? The Atlantic Railway Corridor. Yes, I had a hand in developing this document, which I'm going to. Where's Big Face? I had a hand in it and inputted into this thing. Look, it's the Atlantic Railway Corridor, an appraisal. Inputting into the bottom's a bit dented from it coming over. I'm still out of Guinness actually. I inputted into various bits of this document to review costs of certain elements of infrastructure. Talking of which, weirdly enough, they included it, but I didn't embed the fonts, so it's look, it's permanent rail engineering. Hooray! Doing some stuff. The few various things that I did with it before I kind of wound it up. Some information about costs and preliminaries that I've reviewed, had some comments on. There we go. Yeah, I was the independent cost checker, among other things. It's funny what sort of things I get up to. So, let's put this up here. So, I've had some input into bits of Irish Rail, and I continue to be excited about doing more of that, because I have an excuse to go over there and say hello to everyone. So, right, speed limits, slow. Slow. The subsections of 100 mile an hour railway, but so, there is some infrastructure, but it's and then, there's lots of maps in this bit. You can go through. We're gonna whiz through this. This is a better one. This gives an idea of rail services per day per direction, and you can see the density of service in and around Dublin, and then much lower frequencies. So the main intercity route is indeed Dublin-Cork. That's that kind of chief corridor. Some reasonable services to Galway, less to Sligo. Much less frequency, and Tralee to the same as well. And in fact, this map has for service frequencies. This table. There's lots of good information here. There's some punctuality. Dublin and Cork, less punctuality. Interesting. Good punctuality for Cove and Cork and Middleton. So Cork actually has a fantastic suburban railway network, apparently. Very, very effective running service. Very nice. Oh, I'm still Big Face. Oh, God. I always do this, don't I? Everyone shout at me. Sorry. Yes. Here we are. Look, I was just showing you some stuff. Big Face, Big Face, Big Face, Big Face, Big Face, Big Face. Yeah, nice. There's another nicer version of the rail review, which I thought was new. So this is just like... Yes, thanks. Sorry, I'm here. I've fixed it. Yeah, I'm there. Everyone, your chat's behind. I'm so sorry. What I need is a rigged up system so you can electrocute me. If you can electrocute me when I'm not on Big Face. Everyone in the audio only, you don't care. You've been getting the podcast as per normal. Sorry. Oh dear. You're on this one, weren't you? So what have we got? We've got speed limits. They are. You can see the speeds down to Cork. You've got level crossings per kilometre. Is kind of fun, which is quite good actually. You could do some of this mapping for GB. It'd be quite good. There's per kilometre up more than one level crossing per kilometre on the line to Ballina and down to between Limerick and is that Ballybrophy? I'm not sure. My pronunciations of some of these places might be poor. I can only apologise. Shout at me vigorously on that point. Sakara's saying it's nice to see these next 100 episodes will continue the quality standard set by the previous 200. Absolutely. I mean, you wouldn't have it any other way, right? Right. So, okay, let's hammer through. Service quality was quite good. I was enjoying this. This map, the rail services per day per direction map, was one I was enjoying a lot. It's very nice. And then we got all the services per day. We got the punctuality. There you are. You can see this. This is nice. So I create these for different. I've used this tool and I find it very useful. It's also useful when you pair it with a percentage benefit. But this is nice because you can see the extremes of what's rubbish and what's good. So where road is road and then rail is just shocking. And you should strive for rail to always be quicker than car. Not always possible, but that should be the base point, is rail and car, at least rail should be the same or quicker than car. So that's a good table to show you, for example, so going to Cork, driving from Dublin to Cork takes about 3 hours, takes 2.5 hours on the train. Train wins. So you can see, so this is, I would change the colours of this to shout. I would change this to be shouting, whether it's relative. Yes, like going from Waterford to Derry Londonderry is 5 hours in the car and 10 hours by rail. That's rubbish. So they're clearly not great. Interchange, number of connections to other public transport services. Okay, so loads of, let's see. Costs is quite interesting. Rail generally, so this is interesting because they're showing that the overall costs, it's rail pretty cheap. Walk-up fare is a bit higher, but there's online fares that are cheaper. Rail fairly consistently cheap as a way to travel, which is that's not the case. Rail not always the cheapest to travel. Oh, this is bus showing super cheap as well. Yeah, that again, I would be. The colours don't make any sense. What Arab? What are you doing? Anyway, fine. We're gonna. Okay, this is looking at road traffic and understanding road traffic and how that can be. AADT is vehicles. Average. What is it? Annual average daily traffic. We use the same measure in the UK. It's a good data set to show where you should have railways because you have the high density. But you can see, urban density, everything's busier as you get closer to the urban cores. And okay, so I am gonna fly through this now. Given the okay, fine, fine. There's more. There we go. Let's escape this. There's lots of data. Fine. We don't need to go into this super detailed. What is this one? Potential strategic rail network. Okay, fine. Whatever. Next steps. Fine. So this is part of the final thing, but it isn't the final thing. It's not showing us what they propose. Let's get rid of that and let us talk about. Let's go to the All-Ireland Strategic Rail Review, the consultation paper. So we're jumping back in time a bit now. We're jumping back in time very specifically because we want to talk about. We've kind of covered a lot of this, so we're going to not dwell on it. So we've got the rail network coverage, population density. What's nice about this is they've done a bit more zooming in. So they've shown us kind of what the rail network kind of looks like in and around Belfast, the population density, likewise in Dublin, and again in Cork, kind of showing how the rail network contracts with it. Freight services to Navan, possibly shared track with passenger services between Dublin and Drogheda. Before continuing to Navan or Navan, I'm just not familiar. I haven't talked enough about some of the secondary places in Ireland sometimes. Anyway, it's partly because I'm applying Scottish brain to them, and then I think, am I applying Scottish brain to Irish place names? Does that make sense? Anyway, now this is interesting and wasn't in the previous thing, and I like this. This is travel to work data, and this is talking about modal share. So it's thinking about modal share, and you can basically, red is rail. I know this is small. I don't want to zoom in too much but you can see rail's modal share is hopeless. Bus, pretty good, but actually car, just for the most part, by the way, the dark car is just a single occupant driver, and for most people it's over 50% is single occupancy cars for the way people travel. That's bad. This is very bad. Very, very bad. I don't know why I did a bad. Very bad. Very, very bad. Very, very bad. There we go. That's better. I need to get into. You've got to occupy the mind of the Trump before you do the Trump voice. You can see in Dublin, where there is good infrastructure, you have a chunkier lump of rail commuting mode share. So these kind of colours here show what percentage of people commute by rail, and unfortunately the darkest colour is still only about 7%, so not great. So that's I like that graph. That's a useful one. Passengers at rail stations, you can see again, as you'd expect, high density suburban areas have high ridership. Fine. More bus usage, which is fine, but regional buses are being used because they're cheap, not because they're the best system. Really bad modal share in Ireland, absolutely. I pronounced Drogheda wrong. Someone Navin, Thanks, Tony. Someone write how you would pronounce Drogheda. To do it. Someone do it. Transliterate it, like spell out in words. Go on, Donald. Thank you. Right. Car distance trends. It's interesting. There's fewer people travel less distance in Northern Ireland. That's presumably because of the demographic, and actually people on average are poorer in Northern Ireland than they are in the Republic of Ireland. That would be my guess as to why there's that difference in annual distance travel between north and south. Drogheda. Drogheda. That'll do it. Sorry, Drogheda. Yeah, apologies. That would make more sense actually, given the spelling. Oshin is saying, draw like drop, hair like bread, and like there's a heart. YouTube has put a heart in the way of the end. Breath, hair like breath. Drogheda. Drogheda. Yeah, that's fine. Thank you. Thanks for correcting me. Different. So here's the travel times by different modes again, and this is a bit cleaner. I say this is a bit cleaner. You can see this is they've done a better job of showing what works. Again, I'd have put green on rail if it beats drive. It's round about equal for driving and taking the train. And then that's the end of the consultation paper. So there's this so basically, on the two papers that I've just put up, you can grab. Oh, people are saying no. People are shouting. Donegal. People are shouting. Interesting. Oh, there's now expansive. Now people in Ireland are now battling over differences in pronunciation. That's fine. Let's get the map up. There we go. Right. So population places. So we have Belfast, Dublin, Limerick, Cork. We also have the towns that are 50 to 100,000. So the smaller places. We have Waterford, we have Galway. We have, right, this is going to test me. Can I remember the ones in Northern Ireland there? So Derry up there. And then we have, what do we have? We have Newton Abbey, Bangor, yes. I have a very good friend of mine from who grew up in Bangor. And, what the last bit, what this place is, I think, is it Lisburn? Is this Lisburn, this small place? I don't have any metadata because unlike these ones down here, the Welsh ones, which have come from a data set, so I can go, where's this? And it'll tell me. Question mark, it'll tell me. Will it tell me? No, it won't tell me. I'm surprised that I'm not getting any metadata through. There it is. There we go. Yeah. No metadata in these because they're just dots that I've dropped in, I'm afraid. They're just dots and pins. Is it Lisburn, everyone? Map time. It is Lisburn. Thank you. Good. There we are. I am worthy of hosting a podcast for you. And then lots of smaller places. I've not done the 5 to 10k places because they're too small, and I'm not convinced I've done every single place 10 to 50k. But there's lots of 10 to 50k places which you can't quite see so clearly. In fact, you know what? I'm going to just quickly. What is that? 140. I'm just going to quickly put that as this to make, you know what, let's do it as like a crazy yellow. Let's do it as a yellow. There. So, no, I did the wrong one. Lol. This one here, 150, we're going to make it 2 for a moment. There we go. So you can see all these little yellow dots are the places that are still, you know, sizable towns. You know, you zoom in on any of these places, they're kind of pretty sizable towns. It's a sizable town that certainly merits a fixed infrastructure connection, ideally rail. Some of them are on a nice straight line, some of them are not. So that's all that. Fine, good, grand. So, as per the Welsh rail map, if you remember the Welsh rail map, we looked at the same thing. We looked at areas of varying sizes of population, and we could see that with connectors, I don't know, shoot me Fox, but the connectors down, it was Cardiff to Newport to Swansea. Then you got the increase in the slightly smaller places. You then had a slightly more complex network. Again, you do repeat the same thing again, and then again, and it showed it allowed us to see where the north-south connection should be. That made sense. And the same is true for Ireland. So if we select our 100k plus connectors, this is basically the answer for what should the high-speed rail network look like. So you can see that we should have Belfast to Dublin is an obvious connection. It's just an obvious, absolutely obvious connection. What's the 10 to 50 to the east of Galway? This is a good question. I can't remember that. I wish I had metadata because I'd be able to answer these questions. So, Belfast, Dublin. Then Dublin, to my mind, I know the existing main line goes to Limerick Junction and down to Cork, but it makes sense to have a single high-speed line that connects those 4 cities like that. That's my feeling. Is geographically that would make maybe more challenging geographically, but in terms of having a sensible rail network, that's what you do. But let's see what happens when you add the 50 to 100k. Suddenly it gets a bit more complicated because, oh, by the way, some of these are obviously quite, these connectors are quite long, so that might make less sense than going that way. But for example, do you actually at that point do something like that, and actually that's your regional connectivity, that's your network, and you have a 2-prong network? Certainly not. In fact, let's switch off the 100k connector. Yeah, is that a situation where actually you do you do something like either this or this? It becomes a question of which makes sense operationally. But then I'd say, well, no, because you do need to have a connection between Cork and Limerick. So is that the right solution? Well, no, because I'd say then no. The whole point is that you also connect. So this becomes your. So then the thing is, you then get a bit of redundancy in your certainly in your Irish rail network at that point. So that that is the slightly more complex intercity network that makes more sense. So then let's drop that and go for the 10k to 50k. So obviously this is a much more dense mesh, and this is showing. So for this one, unlike the previous two, this one I've deleted any connectors that are longer than 100 kilometers. That's what I did for the Scotland rail network, I think, as well, and likewise the Welsh one. I deleted any connectors that were longer than 100k, and obviously this is not every single connection to every single connection. This is a kind of a triangular mesh, kind of broadly showing where you have a density of connectivity. And it kind of shows, the good thing about this is it does sort of show what the corridors ought to look like. You suddenly start seeing that there is, obviously, you have a coastal, suddenly the coastal network makes a lot of sense. A lot of people, obviously the fixed connection. Yes. Obviously our preferences. What was my preference for the connection? I think it was the North Wales route, wasn't it? This was my preference for the connection. Is actually the connection from Dublin across is the best connection from Ireland to Wales to Great Britain. Yeah, that is what I reckon. In any case, suddenly you get this mesh, and you can see that the Northwest ought to have railways in it. I think there's anything that's above 10,000, any population. Any place with a population of more than 10,000 should have a railway connection. Means putting a bit of work in. So that's what our kind of, what would you describe that? It looks kind of like a bloated blackbird, doesn't it? This kind of rail network. So that's very exactly. This connecting point is like everything goes through. Actually, where will that be? Right, go on. I should have just got Google Maps up. Google Maps. There we go. We're going. Actually, you know what? Sod Google Maps. We're going for Open Railway Map. There we are. So the place we're talking about is that pinch point is. I'll be able to tell you as soon as I see it. There we are. Dundalk. That's what that looks to be. Is that what that? Oh, Open Railway Map with its slightly strange zoom functionality. There we are, Drogheda. Also there. Anyway, right. Let's alt tab back to here. So fine. That's where that pinch point is. Let us map the Newry. People are saying Newry. Maybe it is Newry actually. I wish I had the metadata. I'm so sorry. Anyway, right. Let us do the last thing, which is switch on the existing rail network to see what that looks like. So if we put on the existing rail network and compare it to the kind of the full dense mesh, you start seeing kind of in some ways where the rail network makes sense and in other ways where it doesn't make much sense. I think the main thing that strikes me, if we switch off, if we kind of look at the main dense network, you could see that there's a complete vacuum in rail connectivity up in the north. It's just a complete lack of it. What's interesting though is there is a rail connection that would provide you a second through connect. If you were to build the rail network up in the north, the existing network currently provides you a connection. Is that going up to Sligo, isn't it? It currently provides. In fact, it was Sligo that was the first place I went to. Of course, it was. And we travelled all over the place, and it was marvellous. In fact, there's some lovely beaches we went and visited. I digress. You could definitely. It was a wedding in Sligo, actually. Oh goodness, I'm highly distracted. The point I was going to make is actually that would then connect and give you a second connection around the island. So what's interesting is that exists, and you shouldn't get rid of it. So if any future network could become more interesting as a result, although it wouldn't give you a complete West Coast connection, which is, I think, even my network suggests that it's difficult to, on a population basis only, you end up with a very long bit of node between smaller population centres. On top of this, let's just look at the 50 to 100k and think about what this network bit looks like. There's Limerick Junction. So you can see the main line. In fact, if we then overlay the 100k, you can see that the 100k main line doesn't entirely make any sense, and because there isn't a connection between Cork that does, other than at Limerick Junction. Limerick Junction looking, weird. Look at this, just nothing but the junction, the railway junction. Very strange. It's like George Mass. I would suggest that you would possibly make use of the existing network going into Dublin, and then branch off and create a new high-speed line that goes to Limerick and then south to Cork. That would be my aspiration. Enniskillen is missing from the smallest data set. I can believe that. West Coast connection is being cleared at the moment. Yes, partly because of my thing behind me, Atlantic Railway Corridor. There's other things that have inputted into clearing the West Coast corridor. So I think that's what the in-city connection should look like. The Belfast-Dublin's obvious. We don't even need to spend any time looking at that, other than possibly me getting up some fun. Let's just briefly get some fun up to provide you some entertainment. Where are we? Projects 2050. There we go. Just going to bring up a thing to provide you entertainment. Limerick Junction should become a big city in normal world. No, I think what you do is that doesn't matter. It stops being. You route the high speed line in a different way. That's the way to deal with that. I'm going to very briefly point out what I probably want to do. I'm going to do this, and then I'm going to do this, and constant world. There we are. We've got CAD in action right now, and we're going to switch off. So all off except this lot, because I do have. Oh, it's a different projection. That's not much use, is it? I've got my map projections all different. That's to OSGB36, and this is to the Irish transverse projection. Boo. That's something to fix later. I will just get rid of that and show you the thing in a separate model. CAD fails. There we are. Everyone, always think about your projections. Not a line following the east coast. Seems a long way around going via Limerick. The thing is, I do think you prioritise connecting the core cities. It doesn't make sense to not do that. I'm going to drag this over here, and we can very briefly look at. There we are. Look, so this is what the high-speed network would look like between Belfast and Dublin. Spoiler alert for the episode where I show you the future high-speed network. But you'll notice at this point I was just doing Belfast-Dublin, so I now need to think about extending this to connect the other direction as well, which gets into geography I know less well. So that's a spoiler alert for future episodes. In any case, the fiddlier bit is what you do about the mid-sized cities. So if you start including basically what is there extra on that? Derry, and for the most part it's just Derry and Galway get added to that, and Waterford. At which point you kind of go, well, actually, what should you do about this? Do you want to make the connection between the line that runs through, Wicklow and other places on this coast? do you want to make the connection this way because that's a higher density route? So you actually sweep in some of that higher density as well as, or do you leave that route separate? Because then there's a real struggle for capacity on some of these lines that are single track over here. The single track line that's actually crying out for more suburban capacity. Capacity enhancements happening further south and such. So is it better to actually rely on the existing urban connections, but then you've got messy turnbacks and bits of messy network? This line becomes difficult. It becomes difficult to make work without substantial new infrastructure. So exactly what you then do to create that route. If this, then you would actually basically. I think that the existing network is not bad on that front. I think the big obvious gaps are Cork to Waterford. I think is a big gap. I think that merits a connection, and then you could doing that. You'd then get an alternative diversion route into Dublin, which has value, particularly if you're thinking about expanding freight. And then connectivity that does actually essentially exist between okay, it's not great, and let's talk about the direction of this lack of chord here going from Galway down to Limerick. There's lots of the stations in these the big towns and cities across the island, across Ireland, have weird turnbacks and strange chord arrangements. It's all a bit odd. Some of which ought to be fixed. So annoyingly, I wanted to reference in my high speed line to show you what the route looks like onto this, but can't because of. I'm not going to try and get the CAD to work because projection's a bit of a nightmare. I need to reproject. Can I do it? No, I'm not going to do it now. I'll maybe create an image and then share it on the Discord server so you can all come in and have a look at that. The current route to Waterford actually has many large towns and is relatively high quality. Current route to Waterford. Yeah, I could believe that. See, good. Lots of big towns. These two, really, weirdly, the railway is not in. Why is the railway there and not here? That's a bit strange. So that, again, a thing that I would potentially consider fixing. One of the things on a line like this is that actually this, just creating a direct high speed line in the vein of direct high speed lines in Europe, where it is dedicated high speed, possibly isn't the most effective way to spend that money. You might actually create a line that picks out key regional centres in the intermedium, and also runs as a mixed traffic line. I know that I often say segregation, but actually, when I say mixed traffic, I don't mean mixed passenger traffic particularly, other than long distance high speed and long distance regional. But I also mean running freight, running electric freight on it. For a country like Ireland, I would say, there's value in thinking about, it's not just a straight, unlike the UK where you have an obvious need for high-speed segregation. It's a bit more like I was talking about in Wales, where actually the new north-south main line in Wales would be more like an Austrian style, or Swiss style main line, where you have a decent density of mixed traffic, but with very high quality signalling and electrification, so that you can maximize capacity on those lines. You wouldn't run them you wouldn't have any single track sections. You would have it fully electrified, and you'd have, well, if you're building this new, it would be ETCS level 3. So there's lots of very interesting conversations going on in the chat. With Dart Plus on the way, what do you think would help with capacity most on lines if needed? I mean, the challenge of Dart Plus using up existing infrastructure is that you lose the capacity for regional routes and vice versa. So Dart, to the best of its ability, Dart Plus should be making the most of let's put it a different way. Managing Dart Plus is going to have a hard time managing some of the interface between some of its local routes, the longer distance local routes, or longer distance rural routes versus for example, the one that runs down the east coast. Versus kind of some of the long distance services, and likewise, if you start bringing some of the stuff on the northern, north of Dublin on the east coast into Dart, then again you have a clash with existing services, which is tricky to do without steel. Steel fundamentally is the way that you get over that capacity conflict. So it's going to be a hard time. I'm not saying it's impossible, and the densities that we're talking about aren't the same as the UK in terms of capacity. There's a lot more that can be done. There's a lot of double tracking that can be done to get Dart to work better. There's lots of very interesting discussion going on. And I think it'll be interesting to pick with this context. So we've got this context. I'm not going to dwell on this now. We've got this context. I think with what will be interesting is to look. This context hopefully is useful in us then looking at what gets proposed and how that matches what we've thought about in terms of the rail NATA network, but also the existing network and some of the work that's going on in terms of segregation in Dublin, but also this reinstating of lines that's going on too. So that's that. That is that. We've scribbled and scratched and looked at those lines. I'm going to get OBS up and remind myself what's going on. Everyone, thank you. By the way, in fact, I'm going to go big face. In fact, I'm going to go big face and I'm going to rearrange the slide deck. So hold the fort because I have some things to say that I want you to all hang around for. Don't all switch off the episode yet. Let's just, there we go. So, in fact, I'm going to do some of, there we go. There we go. So, right. Small face again. I have things to say. First thing, competition update. Let's talk about the competition. Because you've all been sending, lots of you have been sending your favourite moments. If you think of a new favourite moment, you can do that. And I'll just supersede you. Just say you're going to supersede your previous one. But lots of you sent favourite moments, and I'm going. As a result of the interest it's got, I'm going to up the stakes. And I've pulled some books off behind the shelf that I'm willing to give away. That I've kind of been umming and ahhing over the necessity for me to retain anyway. So there's some interesting things that that are going to be in that collection, and I'm going to show you some of them. Because let's go big face again. Let's go big face. Once again, I put my earphones under my jumper because it looks better, but also I'm going to strangle myself. Also, okay? Let's do this. Let's go. You know what? Let's do this. Let's go desk cam. There's desk cam. Hello everyone. It's look. Oh goodness! Nearly chopped my own head off. Look, I got a Hessian sack to put everything in. I am like Santa. There is a Hessian sack full of stuff, and this look, it's full of bits and pieces and joys and delights. What's in here though? What am I going to fish out of here that I think is of interest to you all? Well, let's move the mic over here. The first thing I'm going to fish out is, well, actually, I'm just going to get. So I've added a few little treats here, and as I say, if you wanted these to be signed by me, then say so, and I can sign them, or send you a little message, or write the Kant equation on it or something. There's some old Pandrel track fastening. These are legendary. These ones I've used a lot in my day job, so that's fun. I'm going to put the most special one to the bottom, in fact. A couple of these, there's some old locomotives and coaching stock books. There they are. 2015 version, and then I used to get the updates. These, again, used in day job. 2022, that's fairly recent. That's ironic, but that haven't been on the front, given that those are now currently sat on a side and doing nothing. Now we're getting more interesting, folks. You'll notice there's a double arrow on here. This is the good stuff. The Code of Procedure for Chemical Weed Killing from 1978. Look at that. Look at this. So that's going to be in the bag. That's going to be on the pile. We have the Audi Gauge Manual for Supervisors and Operators. This is 1965. This is even better because it has pictures. Look at this. This has look at this. It's got illustrations of rail defects. This is the good stuff. This is a really nice one. Look at all these. Look at this. So I'm giving this away, but it's got lovely pictures of rail defects on it. Marvelous, isn't it? Absolutely marvelous. And it's got a picture of a guy. Let's find the picture of the guy. I think it's important that there's always a type. It's got pictures. It's got the pictures of the old Audi gauge. This is like early ultrasonic testing kit. I think the kit it describes the type of guy you have to be to run the kit. It says you need to be someone with good ears, which is very funny. Let me just now flick to a picture of the story. There's a picture of the guy in here, and I can't find it. Oh no, I need to find my picture of a guy. There's lovely pictures of cracks in here. There we go. Qualifications of an audio gauge operator. The first thing an audio gauge operator requires is good hearing. The sharper the better. He must on no account be tone deaf. Lol. Yeah, so that's just quite remarkable. And there's a picture of the type of guy doing some note adjustment to ensure correct crystal to rail contact and comfortable working posture. Look at that. So this is in the collection that you can win. And the last thing is a work of beauty. Not necessarily all of these will be. These are things I will pick at random stuff out of the bag. But the thing that will definitely be in the collection is this beautiful book. Look at this. Look at this. It is the British Rail Ready Reckoner. Now, what is that? In the days before Excel, people couldn't do calculations quickly, so you just had a book that had all the calculations written in it. So if you multiplied some awkward number of pence, people are getting angry at how I say Belfast, possibly. Oh, look at this! This is, but it must. I mean, for me, it's just the cover. Look, I would take this cover and add it to every diary I own if I could. It's early BR. That's like 65 to 68 BR, where everything was kind of in this like block. Look, it's lovely. There's the ideal decimal coinage reckoner. The fact that it's decimal coinage dates it a bit later, actually, which is interesting. It'll make it early 70s, which is strange because it's a hanger-on in terms of style, but it's lovely. So, all this lovely stuff. Lovely pictures of cracks in here. Finding your best moment for the competition. Hannah, email it through. Anyway, there's loads of other stuff in here. There's lots of other good stuff. Like, this is fun. Your new East West Railway coming in 2018. Lol. There's all sorts of fun bits and pieces like that you might find. Oh my goodness, that sack has fallen over. That you might find entertaining, that you might find enjoyable, that you might find interesting. That Ready Reckoner is a definite thing. So you need to achieve this to be in the chance to have these things posted to you by me. You need to, first of all, have someone who can host a podcast properly. You need to. Yes, for a chance to win one of the 10 random railway items from the big sack under my desk. So they're already they're like quite a large number of people, more than the number of things that I'm going to be dishing out. So if you want to be in the hat to have your name withdrawn, then you need to email me. You can just send me your favourite moment from the last 200 episodes. It can include this episode if you like, but really it's supposed to be from the episodes up to 200. It could be from 68 when decimal coins. Oh, of course Gareth knows about the decimal coins. It could be from, in fact, Gareth, you should win that thing. Of all the people who should get it, you should get it. So find your favourite episode. Send me your favourite moment from the last 200 episodes. Email it to railnatter@garethdennis.co.uk. So that is how you win those things. There is 1 week left. I will be announcing. I will pull the winner out of a hat next week. So you're running out of time. Please do send your updates. So that's all good fun. It now does remain for me to make my face disappear and say thank you ever so much to all the audio-only listeners. This was mild chaos, particularly at the end where I put my head in a sack. You make this work, and I'm very grateful for all of you for listening. Patreon.com/Gareth Dennis to support me on Patreon. There will be an opportunity for a separate little cheeky opportunity for you to get involved in what's going on with the competition in advance of next week that I'll put on the Discord server kind of before the end of this week. GarethDennis.co.uk, for the /merch for the merchandise. All sorts of things, hoodies, jumpers, mugs, t-shirts, long sleeve tops. Currently no underpants, unfortunately. There is much merch and you can buy it. Hoodies. Did I mention hoodies? There are hoodies. PayPal.me/Gareth Dennis for loose change and abuse, and GarethDennis.co.uk/Discord where the chat continues forever. The people are out here are yeah, that's it. Gareth is saying the favourite moment wasn't actually in an episode, it was sitting outside the York Tap nerding out, drinking beer after the Rail Natter Live. We're going to have another Rail Natter Live, I promise this year it is going to happen. Whether it's earlier or later in the year, I don't know, but it will happen this year. I had such fun, and I want to do another live one. It was honestly tremendous fun. The results of the poll, by the way, is that we have 15% of people watching this are from the island of Ireland, which is cool. The majority, 11% from Ireland and 4% from Northern Ireland. Nice. So a disproportionate number of Northern Irish people watching this. Hello to all of you. I love all of you, and hopefully this was interesting and engaging. Next week, we're digging into the failure stats for the Great Western. Someone very usefully did a Freedom of Information Act, and combined with the readily available failure data that I can pick off the ORR data portal, we're going to have a look at what's going, is there a substantial problem developing on the Great Western? And actually, we're going to look at the failure stats across the whole network and compare them to pre-COVID, pre-rabbit ears modernisation, and see if we've seen an increase in failures. To pronounce Irish places correctly, you should generally stress at the first syllable. Hannah Goodliff, woo, Great Western sucks. Okay, there we go. That's if ever there is an endorsement for for next week's episode, that would be it. Episode 202, digging into the failure stats for the Great Western. That'll be that. So, whether it's me, whether it's Miles, whether it's this small Elizabeth Shaw crispy chocolate thing, or whether it's this sock, which I'm not convinced I know why is here. I think it's an anti-DVT sock. I'm not sure why it's on my desk. I genuinely have no idea why it's there. I think I've emptied something to... I don't know. There's also this card that came with Miles. It's Miles. I could definitely sign Miles and send you a sign. That's also a thing which we could send. There we are. There's Miles. Name Miles. Occupation, friend, and travel companion. Yeah. Anyway. That's going in the sack. Let's go in the sack. I will continue to add things to the sack, and we'll do future competitions. There's more treats that aren't in that sack yet that will find their way into that sack for future competitions, because it's quite a fun thing to do. At some point, I might decide what I'm going to do with these folk as well. This happy crew. Is it ever going to focus? There we are. This happy crew of PY engineers. I think probably keep them for a long time because yeah. Next week should be fun. I'm looking forward to it, looking at doing some good old-fashioned stats. That'll be a laugh. Anyway, right, enough of me waffling. I don't even know how late we are because the clock has disappeared. Quarter of an hour late. Right, everyone, go and have a nice rest of your week. I will see you on Wednesday next week. And do send in your competition applications. I want lots of numbers. I want to have a hilarious number of small bits of paper in a hat for me to pick out of. So do that. Cheerio.